Hi, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Richard Long. And Dr. Long, just had a chance to watch the video with a famous psychotherapist in couple therapy, Dan Weil. And I know you really enjoyed your experience in California there. And I just have a couple of questions.
Sure,
and maybe we can sort of debrief and help our viewers understand a little more about this. Now, I noticed that one of the questions that you asked before the role play had to do with basic counseling skills. You know, I noticed that you spoke with one member of the couple throughout the session. You were that person. Can you talk a little bit about that approach, what it means?
Sure. What I was using there was called doubling. And in doubling, essentially what the therapist is doing is they're listening very carefully to what's being said by one partner, and then turns to the other partner and basically says, taking their voice of the first person, and comes back to them and says, here's what I heard your husband or wife say. Okay. The idea is that you're, one, getting under some stuff that's probably not been expressed before, okay, and trying to give that some kind of voice. You're also kind of slowing things down as you sort of do this reflect, and it becomes a sort of double reflection.
Okay. Well, it sounds a lot like the speaker-listener technique from the behavioral therapy approach. So is that true?
Not quite, because what's happening is, if you think of the work of Gottman talks about this idea of flooding, and he says, one of the problems you have with speaker-listener is couples can't do it when they're angry, or when they're pouting, or when they're sad, or when they're mad at each other. So what this approach does is it says, okay, there might be some flooding going on, and if that's happening, one of the ways to kind of slow that down a little bit is for the therapist to be the intermediary. Okay. So in a sense, I am in fact trying to capture some stuff, but I'm probably also doing a little bit of my own sort of interpretation of how I understand what's going on as well.
Well, I mean, you could be accused of putting words in the client's mouth. Mm-hmm. Now, what was really going on there?
I think that's pretty accurate. Because if you think about, for example, what happens to couples, I mean, sometimes they move into this place where they go, you're a stupid idiot. They'll go to this place where they label the other person. And what I was doing was probably pulling out some of the sharp stabs and jabs that a couple might say, trying to neutralize that a little bit, but at the same time try to get under that a little bit to see what might be there. Is there some sadness there? Is there some aloneness there? Giving voice to that, and then watching to see how is the other person going to respond to that. So was I in fact sort of taking and using my own words? Yeah, that's what I was doing. And I was doing it in a lot of ways to create a little bit more of an elegant conversation between the couple, as opposed to one where nothing really gets said or done that's really significant.
So I read that Weil calls that a joint platform.
That's right.
Is that right? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
The idea is we're looking for some sort of common ground, some place where the two of them can sort of agree. And in the case of the couple, it really had to do with boundary setting, and can they agree that work would have a boundary, or was work going to spill over into their couplehood? And essentially, by listening to each other, they were able to kind of agree that's the place where we need to be, and we do need some couples time. We do need some time that's sacred and that's ours.
Okay, interesting. Now taking into account that this was a training session with one of the top couple therapists in the country as your collaborator, what did you take away in terms of counselor skill, counselor training here for our program?
Yeah, it's pretty basic, Dr. Baltimore. Essentially, it's a couple things. One is you have to practice to get good at this work. And the other one is the value of feedback. What happened was I got stuck at a particular point in that session, and here I have this top flight collaborator ready to kind of say to me, hey, here are a couple directions you could go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably a critical thing to take away, that our students need practice. They need to not talk about doing therapy, they need to do it. Get out there and experience what it means to try to do this work, and at the same time some feedback. What's working, what's not, what are some directions that are working, and what are some directions that perhaps are not getting growth to happen there. Well, this concludes this particular videotape in which we've been taking a look at some work that's basically called collaborative couples therapy. In the opening, what we did was we took a look at this approach, took a look at its originator, and then moved to a role play session in which essentially I did some work and Dr. Dan Weil basically collaborated with me on that work, gave me some feedback on what was there. And then I had the opportunity today to work with Dr. Baltimore, in which essentially what we did was sort of do a debriefing and take a look at and reflect on the work that was there. So thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Richard Long, and with me has been Dr. Michael Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you.